What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and if you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are covering the New York Rangers every single day. And today we have got some absolutely massive news coming out of Rangers camp that has the entire fan base buzzing, and honestly, I don't blame anyone for losing their minds over this because what we are talking about right now could literally reshape the entire look of this team heading into opening night. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get into it because there is a lot to unpack here. Let's start with the name that has been on every Rangers fan's lips for the past 48 hours, Alberts Smits. Now, if you've been following this channel for any amount of time, you know we have been keeping a very close eye on this young man ever since he came over and started turning heads in camp. But here is where it gets really interesting, and I want you to pay attention because the details here matter a lot. There is now a genuine, credible conversation happening inside the Rangers organization about whether Alberts Smits makes the opening night roster. And I want to be very clear, I said maybe. I said maybe because nothing is set in stone, nothing has been announced, and this is still a situation that is very much fluid. But the fact that this conversation is even being had, that alone tells you something significant about where this kid stands right now in the eyes of the coaching staff and the front office. So why is Smits suddenly in this conversation? Let me paint the picture for you. When you walk into training camp, especially as a younger player or a player on the fringe, you need to do something that makes the coaching staff stop, turn their heads and say, wait, who is that? And from what we are hearing and from what scouts and insiders have been saying, Smits has been doing exactly that. He has been physical, he has been engaged, he has been bringing an edge to his game that this Rangers team desperately needs. We all know what this team looks like when they are rolling, fast, skilled, dangerous, but there have been question marks about depth and about having the right kind of players who can bring a lunch pail mentality and compete hard every single shift even when the skill guys are having an off night. And Smits, by all accounts, has been checking that box in a serious way. Now here is the thing you have to understand about how roster decisions get made at this level. It is never just about one camp, one practice, or one preseason game. It is about a body of work. It is about whether the coaching staff believes this player can handle the pressure, the speed, and the moment-to-moment demands of an NHL regular season game. And the Rangers are not a team that is going to hand a spot to someone just because they had a few flashy practices. Peter Laviolette runs a tight ship. He has standards, and those standards do not bend simply because a player looks good in a drill. So the fact that Smits is being mentioned in these conversations means he has done enough to at least be in the room where the decision is being made, and that is enormously significant. Let's also talk about the roster math here because this is where it gets complicated and this is where the maybe comes in and really carries weight. The Rangers have needs at certain positions and there are veterans in the mix. There are players with professional track records and guaranteed contracts, and Smits is going to have to either outperform those guys outright or make a case so undeniable that management feels like they are doing the team a disservice by sending him down. That is a high bar. That is a very high bar. But again, the conversation is happening, and that in itself is news. Now let's pivot because we have to talk about Chris Drury. The Rangers general manager met with media recently, and if you have not watched that press conference yet, you need to go find it, but we are going to break down the most important takeaways right here because Drury said some things, or more accurately, implied some things that Rangers fans are going to be dissecting for weeks. Drury has a very particular way of speaking in these press settings. He is measured, he is careful, he is not going to give you a headline on a silver platter. But if you know how to read between the lines, and if you have watched enough of these Drury media sessions, you start to pick up on the tells. And there were tells in this one. When Drury was asked about the state of the roster and about fringe players fighting for spots, he did not dismiss anyone. He talked about competition being healthy. He talked about depth being a priority. He used the word opportunity multiple times, and in the context of what we have been seeing from players like Smits in camp, that word does not feel like a throwaway line. It feels deliberate. Feels like a message. And the message, if you are reading it the way I am reading it, is that this door is open. The roster is not as locked in as you might assume. There are genuine battles being waged right now, and whoever wins those battles is going to be on that ice on opening night, skating under those Madison Square Garden lights in front of 18,000 Rangers fans who are absolutely desperate for this season to go differently than recent playoff disappointments. Drury also touched on the team's overall direction and depth at various positions, and while he was characteristically vague, the tone of the conversation suggested a front office that is genuinely keeping its options open. This is a guy who went out and made moves in the offseason. We know that we covered all of those moves right here on this channel, but the roster construction is not over just because training camp opened. The final decisions are still being made, and Drury made it very clear through his answers that he and his staff are evaluating everything with fresh eyes every single day. One thing Drury said that really stood out to me, and again this is about reading the subtext, was when he talked about character and compete level being as important as skill in the current phase of camp. Now on the surface, that sounds like standard coach speak, standard GM speak. Every GM in the league says something like that. But paired with what we know about how Smits has been playing, paired with the conversations that have been happening behind the scenes, it reads differently. It reads like a framework for exactly the kind of player who could make a case for that final roster spot. High compete level, strong character, physical, engaged, and bringing energy every single shift. That is a description that fits what we have been hearing about Smits, and I do not think that is a coincidence. Now I want to address the people who are going to come into the comments and say this is all speculation and nothing is confirmed. You are right. You are absolutely right that nothing is confirmed. And I want to be honest with you because that is what we do on this channel. We do not manufacture certainty where there is none. What I am telling you is that there is smoke here, and smoke means something is burning. Whether that fire turns into a full opening night roster spot for Alberts Smits, we will find out. But the ingredients are there. The conversation is happening. The GM is talking about opportunity and competition. The player is performing. The coaching staff is watching. That is a recipe that has produced surprise roster decisions before in this league, and it can absolutely produce one here. Let's also think about what it would mean for the Rangers if Smits does make that roster. This is a team that has been searching for a certain kind of identity in recent years. The skill is not the question. This team has skill in abundance. The question has always been about the grittier elements, the compete every night guys, the players who are going to go into the corners and come out with the puck and not flinch when things get physical. If Smits can provide that in a bottom six role, if he can be that energy line forward who makes the opposition uncomfortable and energizes the building when he is on the ice, that is genuine value. That is something you cannot manufacture with skill alone, and that is the kind of contribution that coaches remember and reward with ice time. Peter Laviolette, as we all know, loves players who are willing to be hard to play against. He loves a certain kind of toughness, a certain kind of compete level, and the Rangers built their offseason with some of that in mind. But there is always room on a roster for a player who can walk into camp as a relative unknown and make such a strong impression that you simply cannot ignore him. It has happened before and it will happen again. The question is whether Smits is that guy this year for this Rangers team. The next few days of camp are going to be absolutely crucial. Preseason games are going to matter. The coaching staff is going to be watching every shift, every board battle, every defensive zone play, every face-off, every moment where a player either rises to the occasion or lets the moment get too big for him. And Smits is going to have to be at his absolute best in those moments if he wants to make this thing happen. The competition is real. The other players fighting for these spots are not going to give ground easily. This is the NHL. Everybody here is talented. Everybody here has worked their whole life to be in this position, and the margins are razor thin. But here is what I keep coming back to, and this is what I want you to take away from this video today. The fact that we are talking about Alberts Smits in the context of the opening night roster, the fact that Chris Drury is standing in front of microphones and talking about opportunity and competition and the door being open, that is not nothing. That is something real. And whether it ends the way Rangers fans are hoping right now or whether camp takes a turn and things shake out differently, this storyline is worth watching extremely closely over the next few days. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss a single update because this situation can change at any moment. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Smits makes the roster? Do you think Drury's press conference was sending a message? I read every single comment and I love hearing from you guys. Smash that like button if you got value from this video. Share it with a Rangers fan who needs to be in the loop, and I will see you in the next one. Let's go Rangers!